I'm going to be manual swapping my RSX. And before we do that, let's go over everything we have that we're going to need to actually do the swap. So starting off, you're obviously going to need a manual transmission. I have a 5-speed out of an RSX. Now there's quite a few different transmissions, and there's different types, variables of the transmissions. I'm not going to get into detail about all the different types of transmissions and what the differences are, but just keep in mind, the main thing you need to keep in mind is the differences in the speed sensor. So 0204 RSX uses a vehicle speed sensor, and the 0506 uses a countershaft speed sensor. So do a little research, find out which style you need, and then also keep in mind, if you're getting a transmission from not from an RSX, you need to worry about the shift selector. There are differences when it comes to those. Now that you have the transmission, before you can actually bolt the transmission to the engine, you're going to need your clutch kit, flywheel, your throwout bearing, the pilot bushing, an alignment tool, and then also the flywheel and pressure plate bolts. When it comes time to actually bolt the transmission into the car, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need a front motor mount from a manual transmission car. You're going to need the T-bracket from a manual transmission car. The rear engine mount is the same, but the T-bracket is different. And you're going to need an adapter bracket for the actual transmission mount itself. Hasport has this one. There's a couple different styles you can use, but this is going to need to bolt to the top of your transmission. The actual engine mount itself is going to be the same automatic mount, but you'll just need this bracket. And this is the stock transmission bracket that you're actually going to take off, and you're going to replace it with this one. The automatic and manual brackets, the transmission mount is actually different heights, so that's why you'll need some kind of adapter to replace those two. Once you have your transmission mounted, we'll move on to the axles. Your stock CV axles you have in the car can be reused. They are bolted in just fine. But what you will need is an intermediate shaft from a manual transmission car. The way the bracket mounts is different. And also the shield for the intermediate shaft is different. So you'll need to get that from a manual transmission car. And then the inspection plate for the flywheel will also need to be remembered. Now that the transmission itself is actually mounted, let's move on to getting everything connected and out of the engine bay and start moving our way toward the interior of the car. So on the transmission itself, you're going to need the slave cylinder, and then you're going to need the clutch master cylinder. There are two styles. You have the stock RSX style. It has this triangle piece right here. This is actually a dampener for the clutch pedal. It basically evens out the pressure when you push the clutch pedal. Or an upgrade that a lot of other people will do will take the master cylinder out of an EM2 Civic EX, and it removes the damper and gives a more direct feel. It's pretty much plug and play. Other people will do an EM1 style clutch master cylinder, but you have to change the shaft, the way it mounts. It's a little different. So stick with EM2 style and it'll be good. You'll need the actual clutch line that goes from your master to your slave. I have a stainless steel braided line, but that's how that connects. And then you'll also need your clutch fluid reservoir. So you have the reservoir, the bracket, and the line that connects to the top of the master cylinder. And finally, we have the shift cables. I highly recommend getting OEM shift cables. Do not buy eBay shift cables. They will break. They're junk. They have proven to be worthless. Upgraded ones like K-Tuned or Hybrid Racing are pretty good, but I still recommend getting OEM shift cables. And then you can buy like hybrid racing kits, where you can buy like new on the shifter base side. You can buy new bushings on the transmission side. You can also buy upgraded bushings, so most people go with. But if you can find OEM style shift cables, I highly recommend getting those. Moving into the interior of the car, next thing you're going to need is the actual shifter base. So you have a few options when it comes to getting the shifter base. You can get the shifter base from a 5-speed RSX, a 6-speed RSX, or this one I got is actually from an EM2 Civic. Save you a few dollars if you get the one from an EM2 Civic. They're all identical. The actual base itself and the mechanisms are identical. The only difference is the 6-speed. The shift arm has a little bit more sideways movement, basically for when you're doing 6th gear and moving into reverse on that transmission. But other than that, they are identical and they will work for all of them. With that as well, you're going to need the center console for the manual transmission car. The one for the automatic does not fit. You won't be able to put a shift boot on it, so make sure you grab this from a manual transmission car so that you can bolt in and you can actually cover your shifter. Also, I forgot to mention is the clips for the shift cables that actually clip it into on top of the transmission and also onto the shifter base. When you're pulling your shifter cables, if you're going to the junkyard, don't forget those, or K-Tune, Hybrid Racing, etc. sells these as well. Continuing on the interior of the car, next thing you'll need is your clutch pedal, and as well as the brake pedal out of a manual transmission car, because the brake pedal is smaller and the arm is different. It angles it so that when you have the clutch pedal and brake pedal next to each other, they're in the correct position. When you're grabbing your clutch pedal, make sure you're grabbing your two clutch switches. One is for the neutral safety switch, the other is your cruise control. So make sure those are on there, or if not, buy those as well. And the next thing on the difference between the manual transmission car and the automatic transmission car is the way the clutch pedal bolts in. The clutch pedal bolts directly to the master cylinder. The clutch master cylinder bolts directly to this. And to do that, you're going to need to drill holes in the firewall. Luckily, Honda has the indents already in the firewall, so there's no guessing on where the holes need to be. They're already there. Just pull back the rubber on the firewall. You'll see the 3 dots, two small for the mounting and the large one for the master cylinder to go through. You'll just need to drill the holes out there. The next problem you have is on the top of the clutch pedal, the way it mounts. On a manual transmission car, there is a bracket on the top that the automatic cars do not have. This is that bracket. It basically goes here on the manual transmission car. There's a spot welded to the top, and it has a nut already inside of it so that when you bolt this on, it goes through. One of the differences between the manual and automatic RSX is the clutch pedal, where it mounts on the top. There's this bracket here, up here. The automatic does not have this bracket, so it'll just leave a gap. So you either have to try and grab this bracket or make something to fill the gap between the top of the clutch pedal and there. You can do like I did and cut this bracket out, and some people will drill a couple holes to some riv nuts and bolt it up, or you can weld it. Other option obviously is to just make a bracket of your own to fill that gap, but you will have to find a way to fill the gap from the top of the clutch pedal to the actual body of the car. Now, if you grab this bracket, there is an indentation in the top of the sheet metal where this bracket directly aligns to. So again, there's no guesswork on where this goes. It's already there. You just have to have it or figure out a way to be able to mount some kind of bracket to the top of the clutch pedal so that it has stability. Now that we got all the mechanical stuff already completed, now we have to move on to the electrical side of things, and that involves your harness, your ECU, and your gauge cluster swap. Don't need to do the gauge cluster swap, but get rid of the Prindle, swap the gauge cluster out. Now on the wiring harness side, on the interior side, you have the dash harness. VTech Academy has an article, 2-part article online that shows the changes you need to make for the dash harness. You have the clutch neutral switch, the cruise control safety switch, and then you have to do some rewiring for the speedometer, the speedo. Or you can make it easy. You can grab a manual dash or even just a harness and swap it out. You don't have to do any cuts, slices, or anything like that. That's what I'm doing, but I also did a full black interior swap. Then on the engine harness side of things, the number one question people ask is, can you use the automatic harness in your manual swap? And the simple answer is yes, you can. You just won't use any of the automatic plugs, and you'll have to wire in the reverse light switch that's on the top of the transmission right here. But again, VTech Academy has a YouTube video that shows the entire process of converting an automatic harness to a manual harness. If you want to go through the process of removing all the automatic plugs, you don't have to, but the key thing in that video is just wiring up your reverse light switch. And if you're using a 6-speed transmission and you have the capability to use the reverse lockout solenoid, it also shows you how to wire that in. You can wire it from scratch, or if you're doing a engine or a manifold swap because you're running K-Pro, and you're getting rid of the base manifold, you can repurpose your IMRC solenoid connector for the reverse lockout solenoid. You just have to move it from one side of the harness to the side. If you have a 5-speed ECU that has K-Pro, you can go in K-Pro and just reallocate that switch to do reverse lockout. If you have a 6-speed ECU, you're going to actually have to repin the C101 plug to the factory location to use it. But besides that, the option is, like I did, I bought a harness from a 5-speed ECU or a 5-speed RSX to run, since I'm running a 5-speed transmission. No cuts, no wires, plug and play. So I just did the plug and play route with my dash and engine harness, so I don't have to do that. But again, you can use your automatic wiring with a small couple changes, but besides that, they'll work just fine. Then you have your ECU side. The biggest thing is the immobilizer on the key. You need to figure out how to bypass that. So if you use your automatic ECU, you can send it to Hondata, get K-Pro, and then you can run your run the manual transmission through that. I bought a 5-speed ECU to swap over, and then I'm just going to take it to Honda and have them reprogram my immobilizer to my key. Or you can buy a bypass, a couple $100, and just bypass the immobilizer with a box. Or you can do the most involved route, which is grabbing the key, ECU, and immobilizer from the ignition from the donor car and just swapping over to your car, and you don't have to do any of that. But besides that, I mean, that's mechanical, that's wiring, that's everything we need to manual swap the RSX. So once the snow melts and it gets warmer around here, we're going to actually go through the process of swapping that, and we'll do a full series on that as well.